go see the movie. I mean, I spiritually wouldn't go. I wouldn't do it because it's part of it. I wouldn't steal somebody else's movie, you know, or his record. You know, I'd rather not listen to it. It's even worse. But
how do you guys work together? Clearly you have a relationship, shall we say, a rapport, right?
I say actually.
Well, it's you know, it's a hard one to say. I mean, it's our relationship is probably the longest relationship of any DP director that I know of. I don't think anybody's done that much. And you know, I always refer to him as my dysfunctional growth. So you know, we have a you know, we have. There's a lot of hubris on the set. You know, he has his ideas. I mean, he has his ideas. Well, Bad Lieutenant was interesting. And it was. I think that was the only time we actually set a parameter, a framework before we started the movie. We sat down and we said, we're going to hold the camera's going to be very objective. It's going to hold Keitel in sort of a medium close-up, and that he'll do whatever he wants to do, and you just follow and try to keep it in focus. And you know, look, our films. Yeah, I mean, really, because the thing about Keitel, you know, there are. You know, when you're dealing with depth of field, you know, you got to when you're going like this, okay, the guy's rocking in and out of focus. You know, a 35 millimeter camera, a rickety old BL3 with you know, with the one crappy zoom that they gave us at the rental house, which was all we could afford, was 60 pounds of pain for me. And Keitel was. You know, I put the camera on my shoulder, and then for, you know, 11 minutes, he would do whatever he was going to do. He would do his rehearsals, but nothing he did in rehearsal ever approached what he was going to do. I mean, if you look at the 8.5-minute long masturbatory scene, that was kinky, sexy, and qualities. And so I said to Abel, what am I going to do? He said, I don't care what he does, just keep it in focus. So we had no idea. We had no idea whether he's going to have sex with his ex-babysitter or what was going to happen. And they were pretty lubricated, so it could have happened. And it was a rainy, crappy night. And actually, what I thought he did when he masturbates in front of these girls, I think that just like the kinkiest, much more kinky than I had even imagined that he'd come up with. But the thing is that the reward for me is, look, I'm in the closest and the best seat in the house where I'm seeing Keitel and Bad Lieutenant, who was an amazing performance. I mean, if I was going to think of other actors' performance, he's one of the top 5. He was bold and whatever. And the other thing when we talk about art, it's like you got to remember that Abel is one of the last Final Cut directors. Period. I mean, there's languages when he gets a cut.
These guys will Final Cut directors.
Yeah, you're a Final Cut. Well, you're a Final Cut director now because, well, yes and no, because they have to make their films. You got a professor telling you, you know, what you should do in your film. And when I went to NYU, they either loved my films or they hated my films. And there was a little bit of violence in it. There was usually some nakedness. There was this. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't recommend this. But I was the teaching assistant, and I was in charge of equipment. So I was making my graduate thesis film, and Dale was shooting it, and I took 3 cameras, every light we had for a month. And they called me up and they said, Ken, you got to bring the stuff back. I said, no. They said, well, when are you going to bring it back? I said, well, when I finish. And I don't think we ever finished. We shot.
Don't get any ideas, guys.
So, I mean, we just shot and shot and shot. I've been to my own movie 6 times, but I was driven. I mean, I had something to say. The problem is, today, you got to figure out in your head what you want to say. And, you know, Van Gogh despite of art he approached, he mastered it. He went on. He made that school of art. He became the master. He transcended it. If you know anybody can, you know, there's so much, you know. Screenwriting is either 3 or 5 acts. The first act, you familiarize yourself with the character. In the middle of the picture, you put the character in jeopardy. And in the end, you resolve it to a satisfactory point. That's a simple, linear way of looking at anything. It's as simple as that. Can you do something different? Can you Memento? You know, Nolan took stuff with a little bit of trickery. He made a great film. I think the guy's a terrific director. And now he's got a ton of money, and he makes stuff like Inception, which could have been really crap. I liked it. What are you going to make? What do you got to say? And every single person here has got something to say. You all have an experience that I know nothing about. And the problem is getting the capital to get the camera, even though cameras are cheaper and digital, and you know, ones and zeros are a lot cheaper than grinding film through at $1 a foot, 90 feet a minute. You first, and the other thing that I find a little bit disquieting, the only thing I find disquieting is, unfortunately, I think that you got sort of screwed on your education, and
well, on that note,
no, let me finish here. I'm not talking about college. I'm talking about way back when. I'm talking about, you know, when Judy Blume became a classic in high school. I mean, she's a classic writer. She's writes for kids. The fact is that you know, all these histories, all these narratives have been addressed. You know, I was a compulsive reader as a kid. I was a compulsive moviegoer. So, you know, I had a vocabulary. I read and I watched. I watch films differently than you watch films, or the way you want to watch films. You know, T.S. Eliot used to say he never read a book at night when he went to bed without bringing a tablet and a pencil with him. And it's unfortunate because there's so much out there to teach you how to do it just by looking and observing how the masters have done it. I mean, if Picasso can take something that wasn't supposedly original and make it original, you guys are allowed to do the exact same thing yourself and maybe personalize it by dealing with an experience that you feel in your heart of hearts, that comes from your spirit, comes from your soul. That's what Cassavetes had to say. Look, Cassavetes is a guy who made a lot of commercial films so he could go out, and his first DP was his accountant. The guy didn't even know what the light meter was. I mean, shadows, horrible. I mean, as far as if you look at it in terms of lighting and framing and operating. But there's, you know, when you look at what Cassavetes does with a film like that, a primitive film, it's amazing. It's
Cassavetes also made films with students. When he was out in California, he worked with all the students from AFI. They were the crew on his movies, several of his films.
Yeah, and he's saying that was the best crew he ever had.
That was the best crew.
It wasn't he wasn't teaching them anything.
I'd like to just run, now that we have one screen, I'd like to run a few minutes of Bad Lieutenant if you don't mind.
Sure.
So they can see, the people that haven't seen it, get a sense of some of both of your work. So let's see.
This is part.
You know, a 6-pack of Bud was $1.50 or something like that. So at any rate, my basic needs were met. You can be an artist. You can be an artist when you're young. But when you get old and you have responsibility and you got your 3 kids going to college, you know, that's a big responsibility. Plus the fact is eventually I think you have to grow up. I used to tell Tucci, I mean, maybe. Well, my kids dragged me kicking and screaming into adulthood. You know, you have to be responsible at one time. Personally, I would have been. I was a guy who didn't want children. Quite frankly, I didn't want kids because I was going to have this big career where I was going to be an artist. that's the biggest crock of shit I can sell myself ever. You know, if there's anything I learned that's important, it's the fact that of all the titles I like best, I like to be a dad the best. So I mean, it sounds trite, but it's true. Now, give me $100 million film and shoot, I'll be out of there. Where's my light meter? Hopefully we'll do it in film. He's another guy, but the thing is that I don't think that they look us up and they say, well, we're going to have, we're going to call Abel Ferrara to do, the movie version of the Gilmore Girls, I don't think that's going to happen unless they're naked and having some lesbian sex.
What aspect of going to school contributed to your profession, and has like the teaching styles and such, have they changed since you went to school?
At Rockland Community College, how was that?
I didn't think there were any teachers. Then there was like a club. It was a film club. But actually, one of the kids there ended up being nominated for an Academy Award for writing The Color Purple. What, say that again?
How is the style of teaching changed?
Well, I mean, I'm not in the university world. I'm sure it changes who who's teaching. But what was the first question?
Like basically, do you find anything that you learned from school useful into your career today?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got a place where you can sit and figure out what the fuck you're gonna do, if you're even gonna do it, and then you gotta learn how to do it. I mean, in this day and age, just because every jerk off, every mother can walk around with their telephone, you know what I mean? And they think they're making movies, that ain't making movies. And and the point is, people know what movies are, and you guys know it. I mean, we knew what movies, a good movie from a bad movie when I was 5 years old. I might not know who directed it, or if there even was such a thing as a director. But the movies that matter and would know. And to get yourself in a position where you could make a film and know what the fuck you're doing, and and how to put it together, and how to how to take what you want to say and be able to say it. I mean, that don't happen. I mean, unless you're Orson Welles, that ain't going to happen in 5 minutes. So that's what the whole point of your education is about. And in that space, I'm just adding that other thing to it, is give yourself a game plan, because it's a rough world. And I know for me, because I'm like, I'm in the same spot I was from day one, we're struggling to pay the rent, struggling to pay this, struggling to get a budget, struggling to get the films out, struggling to get them, you know what I mean? I mean, so, unless you were like one of 7 people in the world named Spielberg, or, your father happens to own the fucking Knicks or something, you got, you could, maybe, but then again, maybe you shouldn't even think of any of this shit. Maybe you should just really think about it. You fucking wouldn't do it. I mean, that's the other side of it. If I really sit there and analyze what it was I was getting myself into, and it'd be, because it didn't make sense then either. I mean, the independent film world was different. We made it happen. It was going to be there whether, you know what I mean? I mean, it was a force of will, but, and like you spoke about Picasso, but my favorite Picasso line was, I don't seek, I find. You know what I mean? So, I mean, when I hear him say that, or not, I hear him, I'm not there.